Right 3 plus, 50. Shit.
Welcome back to Team O'Neill. I'm Chris. I'm joined by the founder of the rally school, Tim O'Neill, and we wanted a chance to do some breaking down our rallies. We've done a few rallies the last few months, and we wanted to really teach you guys from some of our mistakes. And this one, we're going to talk about crashing. And so, Tim, I'd like to get from you a little bit of what is the difference between a crash and an accident?
Well, I think the difference is whether you want to admit you made mistakes or not. Most people say it's an accident, and I find that sometimes airplane engines fall and they can land on your car. That would be an accident. You had nothing you could do to control that. But most crashes, there is a series of events or misjudgments or bad decisions made that caused the crash. So I'd like to think that I don't learn anything from an accident, but a crash, I do learn. So that's where I draw the line.
It's interesting, and I think most of what I think of it in modern society, we call almost everything an accident.
Or bad luck or something.
Mistakes.
Bad luck. You hit a tree. That's not bad luck.
Let's dive into it a little bit. So this first video that we're going to break down is Tim and his crash.
We are? Yes, it was not an accident.
Here's you in the beautiful Amex.
This was also the last time you see my perfect hood and fender. So I turned, one of my things is I have a poor location for my wiper switch, and because these old American cars, they didn't have a switch on the steering column. So I'm still working on trying to fix that. So I should have just left the wipers on.
So yeah, you turned them off now.
So now I'm in the open.
And now you realize you need them back on.
I went to turn them back on, and I got distracted, and I didn't turn in quick enough. And I had enough time to say Scheisse in English. And so the biggest problem here was I shouldn't have gotten distracted with trying to turn the wipers on and off so much. I should have just left them on, even if it would got drier in the woods and there wasn't water on the windshield. And I knew that eventually if I kept monkeying with the wiper switch, I was going to have a problem. And it was just enough of a distraction that with my car is kind of heavy, so you have to slow down and turn in early, and I didn't. And by the time I went to turn in, it was already too late. And so my mistake was distracting myself trying to turn the wipers on and off all the time. I should have just left them on in the beginning of the stage and let them run dry. It's okay.
Right. It's interesting. I remember talking with you about this when you were building the car, and just one of those things that you had so many things, more things to fix, right? And that was just one of the list of things. And a lot of the rallies have been dry, so we really haven't been dealing with water. And Olympus was really rainy, so you're dealing with that quite a bit. And yeah, it's amazing. You can see in the clip where at the start of the clip, you get your hand in there, you turn off the wipers, and it was only like 10 seconds later that they're coming out of a 4 into a 3. So it's also tight sets of corners. Maybe if you were listening to the notes a little more, like deciding in a 5 or 6 to monkey with it rather than a 3.
Right. Yeah, no, that was a bad one. And I found that a lot of people will get distracted with an oil light or a temperature light or just that 1 millisecond. You know, it's very hard, and mechanically, yes, I had a lot of other things I was working on, and to solve the wiper being on the stock is kind of a challenge because it's an ancient car. You have to change the whole steering column just to get the wiper to work. Jeez. So it was one of those things that I knew eventually was going to create a problem, but I'd hoped that I was smart enough to just leave them on and not worry about it. But I made a mistake there.
Interesting. Well, thank you for your lesson from that, and it was a tough one. And we'll show a picture of the video of the car on the trailer once we got it back to service. But
distracted driving is the #1 reason for crashes nowadays. Used to be falling asleep or getting, drunk driving. Distracted driving because of our devices, and that makes me just like a young teen driver working on my phone.
A 1969 wiper switch motor. It's the cause of this.
But one good news is my particular car had been upgraded from the original vacuum wipers that ran off the engine vacuum, which is sort of like goes back to the Model T. So I've upgraded to electric wipers. We're still impossible to operate, but we have electric wipers now.
That's amazing. My crash was at Bristol, so Bristol, Tennessee, on pavement. And so I also crashed on the same stage you did in Oregon or at Olympus, but that was more of a mechanical issue. This was purely a driving mistake. So I wanted to show you this clip and get your input on this.
This, I believe, was a decreasing radius turn, corner tightens, and this was also a problem I used to have back in the day, and even when we had notes, it would be, say, a 4 that tightens late, and you come through the 4 and you think, okay, that must be it, and then you accelerate, or you cut to the inside, and then the corner tightens up. So then if you're on the inside of the corner when it tightens, and you're going to have a problem. So I think the biggest thing was, you know it tightens, you wait for it and stay out. I think you had mentioned to me at the time that you hadn't been used to driving at night, and the lights on your car are pointing at the woods. Remember, we always say, look where you want to go? Well, at night, the only thing you can see is what's illuminated. So it's difficult sometimes.
You got to really trust your hearing more than what you see at night, for sure.
Exactly.
And I didn't do that at that point.
Because if you drive visually, this type of thing happens. But if you drive with what you hear, with the notes, you disregard the trees and the mountains and the rocks and the whatever else you don't want to hit. And you drive with what you hear.
Compounding my mistake, so I'm in the ditch and I am working reverse first, and I'm rocking the car, right? And if it's moving 4 or 5 inches, I'm confident I'm gonna get out. But I can't get over the lip of the road. So what I'm trying to do now is like turn the car to the ditch, right? I'm trying to get in the ditch line, and what I ended up doing was the clutch started to get really hot, and I start to feel that the clutch isn't working anymore. And then what I do is I decide, been working out, been trying to be more mindful of my own emotions, and I was really hot and emotional myself, so I stopped for a second. And when I stopped, I could see smoke, right? And so I opened the door and I look under the car and I start to see, and I saw a fire. And so that's when I really elevated, and there's a car that's driving by and I was able to stop them, and they had a fire extinguisher, get my fire extinguisher. Luckily it ended up turning out that I just caught some leaves on fire under the car, and the car itself never actually caught on fire. But definitely one of those moments that, should I have stopped, knowing how to get out of the ditch, front wheel drive, like everything was, my desire to keep going, like it didn't, just because I went off the road didn't mean that my rally was over, and I was just trying to work my way through that. But yeah, it was one of those things that I'm glad it wasn't any worse than it was. And I was actually proud of myself, at least, that I stopped when I did. I could feel the clutch getting hot. I knew things were not working right. And so at least, that fire could have started a lot of things on fire. So luckily that didn't happen.
Fire! But one thing you said is you knew yourself well enough to know you're getting a little overexcited. You're full of adrenaline. The car stopped. You're jacked right up. Right. Now you're going to only break.
I probably picked that thing up out of the ditch. I should have just got out and picked it up.
Well, you still have adrenaline, yeah. But you know yourself, and this is, you've been in a few crashes before. We've all seen how we respond when we get stressed out or in that situation, and that's very important. The funniest thing about this crash was I had heard that there was a crash, and then there was a car fire, but then the people got going again. So I thought there were 3 different incidences.
It was all me.
And then I seen you and Martin come back, and I'm like, I told him, I says, well, so what happened? And it's like, and I realized you guys were all 3 incidences. Yes, we crashed, we caught on fire, but we kept going.
Yeah, we drove back. We got the car.
Proud of you for doing that. But I think the driving what you hear is what your takeaway was, right?
Oh, for sure. Especially at night on pavement. Like for me, there's a lot of new stuff, and I was driving too fast for my experience and all these things. And we're going to talk about this in the next video on pavement driving, understanding how to drive better on pavement. But I wasn't implementing all of those lessons that I should have been. And so that's kind of what ended up happening, is ended with me driving off the road and crashing.
So rookie move, but at least you had headlights. You realize I forgot my driving lights, And I drove this stage about 10 minutes before with just headlights. And had it been really dark, like as dark as you had it, I might have done the same thing because I forgot to pack my driving lights.
Thank you for joining us for the lessons on our crashing video here. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know. Let us know if you've ever been in an incident, a crash, and what lessons you've learned from them. So look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments, and we'll talk with you soon.